our experts to deliver key health, fitness and nutrition tips as we focus on different elements of physical wellness. Now, whether you've heard from friends, family or gym buddies, certain fitness myths persist that may cause us to keep bad habits. Joining us tonight to help bust some of those myths, a very warm welcome to none other than the founder of Fit Dad Life Mastery, Adam Khan. Assalamu alaikum, Adam.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, very well indeed. Jazakallah khair for joining us. I've got to say, I follow maybe loads of myths. That's probably why I'm in the state that I'm in right now. But I suppose let's start with the first one. Let's go with cardio. How important is cardio for fat loss?
Not at all. Not at all.
So all those runs and all those things that I do on the bike, waste of time.
Yes, if your nutrition isn't taken care of. Now the issue is, I think most people, when you tell them logically, they understand that if you went jogging for say half an hour, you might burn 200 calories, maybe 300. But if you eat a Krispy Kreme donut, some of them go up to 450 calories.
Wow.
So you've essentially burned less than a donut. Now the other thing is that we find is that people who are prone to becoming overweight, they tend to have compensatory behaviors. And often when people do cardio or even any form of exercise, they tend to then compensate by giving themselves a license to eat. And generally, some types of training trigger hunger anyway. And I experienced that myself yesterday, actually. I was very hungry yesterday. I wondered why. It's probably because I went for a run in the morning.
No, but then, so would one way be to do, I don't know, fasted cardio? So if we're doing cardio, is it a balanced diet or a kind of an intermittent fasting type diet? Which works better in that kind of scenario?
Well, the diet that you can adhere to most easily is going to work the best. And diet that you can adhere to the easiest is often a balanced one because it gives you a room for flexibility. And with ourselves, with my target market, the South Asian or Asian dads, or say South Asian, so that people across the pond understand who we're talking about.
Yeah.
But in the UK, when we talk about Asians, we have certain cultural foods that we enjoy eating. Now, if we are able to continue to eat very similar to the way we're already eating, it's going to be easier to adhere to. And by making simple tweaks, you can get into a calorie deficit. So it's not a case of eliminating entire food groups or entire foods. The more flexibility that you can have in your nutrition, the more easier it will be for you to adhere to and lose weight and keep it off long term, if that makes sense.
I mean, it sounds almost like the diet is equally, if not more important than the exercise that you're doing.
It certainly is. Once again, I think most people say that, but in practice, they don't follow that.
I mean, I know I'm guilty of that. And like you say, if I did go for a run, which is very rarely, but when I do go to the gym, which is also very rarely, when I come back, I feel like I've earned my meal, but I'm not necessarily counting my calories per se. So maybe that's where someone like myself and maybe a lot of our viewers are going wrong, I imagine.
Yes, if you were to count calories, it works. If you were to count calories and do it accurately, it works. But the problem is, when we looked at studies, we found that even dietitians make mistakes when counting calories, and they were off. On a study that was conducted on like 30 plus dietitians, they were off by about 200 calories. And when we use calorie calculators as well, they're best guesses. They're not accurate. What you would do is you'd go off one of them and then you would adjust as required. I find it's much easier simply to make better food choices and control your portions. If you can control your portions, make better food choices, control your food environment, then you'll find it's much easier to get into a calorie deficit. Like it's much easier to abstain from eating a Krispy Kreme donut than it is to go for a run for 45 minutes to an hour to burn that off.
Absolutely. And I should say to our viewers, other donuts are available as well. Now, another question, truth or myth? If I do ab workouts, does that shrink my belly?
No. An ab workout, typically a 20-minute ab workout, might burn 30 to 50 calories. Again, if you equate that to a plate of rice, 500,
Right.
600 calories.
Wow. So all those times, because you just, so why do we do that ab workout? Is it just because we thought if I'm targeting my stomach,
Yeah.
psychologically we feel like we're going to be, so what is the best exercise and to get the stomach down or get the abs in shape?
Oh, I have a video on my social media where I joked
Yeah.
about this years ago, because I get asked that a lot. What's the best exercise for any particular thing? And I joked and I pushed a plate away, and I used a weight plate. Then I said, no, it's not this plate that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the dinner plate. Putting the dinner plate away. So the best thing really is to control the food we take in.
Interesting. And now what about things like weightlifting against cardio? So again, if I'm trying to get into shape, lose weight, because again, I've heard things like high intensity training, which I'm guessing is the weights, right? Also resistance training, beg your pardon, resistance training, that helps more than say cardio.
Actually, it does. Over the last few years, we've come to discover that weight training, again, as a whole, exercise as a whole, even weight training, is in the face of lifestyle changes and nutrition changes, is largely ineffective or very minimal. In studies that have shown where people have managed to lose weight through exercise, that's when they've exercised like 3 hours a day for 5 to 6 days a week. Only then did they have a significant effect on the weight loss. And from that as well, they lost about a pound or two. Now, not many of us can exercise 3 hours a day. And even if we did, we wouldn't recover from it. So in terms of training, your best modality of training for weight loss would be well. When I say weight loss, I mean fat loss, because when you're training resistance training, you might gain some muscle, and so your weight might stabilize a little bit or go down slowly, but you'll be gaining muscle. But from an exercise perspective, the first port of call would be to start resistance training, because you're maintaining muscle, so that helps you to maintain some of the metabolism. Also, when after you weight train, your resting metabolic rate increases, so you burn more calories up to 72 hours. On average, about 160 calories a day. So when you are doing the workout itself, you don't actually burn a ton of calories. Maybe 300, maybe 350 calories. But it's the calories you burn after the workout, where your body is repairing the damage that's done to the micro trauma that you've caused through resistance training. And that can last up to 3 days. So you'll get a cumulative effect of about 600 calories, or just under, over 3 days. But then you'll be training again. So it's that compound effect that's going to, and then you'll be adding some muscle tissue, which will increase your metabolism slightly as well. But it will preserve your metabolism more than anything, because if you were to lose muscle tissue, your metabolism will decrease.
Now, I remember when I was a growing lad, I mean, I was still growing the wrong way, unfortunately, when I was a nipper and a growing lad. And I remember I picked up the weights and I got told off by my grandma, because she said, don't pick up weights because it's going to stunt your growth. Clearly, I listened, because now I've shot up to 6 foot plus. But is there like an age where if someone is growing, they shouldn't be lifting weights? And is that also a myth, or is that true that lifting weights, it can stunt your growth, and therefore do it after a certain age?
Again, it's a myth. If in the process of lifting weights you damage your platelets at the end of your bones, that can stunt your growth.
Right.
But that shouldn't happen if you train sensibly. That shouldn't happen. In fact, it can help you to reach your potential, growth potential. I would argue that weight training is safer than most other sports, because with weight training, it's linear movements often. There's not a lot of unpredictability. So if you're playing football, like you probably know somebody who's injured themselves from football or basketball or some other sport, because there's a lot of you're pushing and shoving, and you're switching directions very, very quickly. So that's when you can twist an ankle or a knee, or somebody can grab your arm or something, and you can get an injury. But when you're doing linear movements where it's straight up, straight down, there's very little chance for injury. It's only when ego gets in the way and you try lifting too much and you do it in a form that you can possibly injure yourself.
And what about things like high intensity training? Because I know we've said cardio doesn't, well, it's good, but not going to burn that much fat. But if I do the high intensity, quick, was it sprint, stop, will that make a difference?
Again, not that much. It was hyped
Right.
a lot in the last, about 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, nowadays, most evidence-based coaches know this, and they'll tell you that, it's not as effective as we once thought. So from a high-intensity training, there's a concept called EPOC. That's exercise post-oxygen consumption. And with that, you burn some extra calories. Now, it was led to believe that this was, a lot, but it happens to be only between 6 to 15% of the calories burned in the workout. Now, typically on a 20-minute HIIT session, don't forget that you're going to be going high intensity for about, if it's proper high intensity, then you're going to go all out for about 10 seconds, 15 seconds at most, and then 20 seconds. Then there's a difference between Tabata and interval training and high intensity interval training. But if you were to do the really, really hard stuff, you'd go for about 8 to 15 seconds. But then you're spending the rest of the time at a lower intensity. So in total, on a 20-minute workout, on average, you're going to burn about 150 to 200 calories. Then you're going to burn between 6 to 15% of that in the next hour or so after that workout. So it's not a great deal. Now, if you are telling somebody who's quite unfit, they don't have the fitness level to be training at a high enough intensity to make that really count anyway.
It sounds like, from what you're saying, weight training is probably the most efficient way out of all the different things that we're talking about. But just beyond exercise, because sometimes you get these adverts for, here's a super pill, take the pill for great fat loss relief. Even people say drink apple cider vinegar for to motivate, or green tea. I mean, do these things make a difference, or again, is it just really you've got to do the exercise at the end of the day?
It's negligible.
Right.
So with big pills and green tea, things like that, they can burn like between 30 to 50 calories in a day. Again, do you want to be popping pills all day just to burn 50 extra calories? So they work in different ways. Some of them increase your metabolism a little bit. Some of them suppress your appetite. Now, again, the cost and the potential damage that you might have from certain pills it doesn't outweigh the benefits.
Right. Well, look, Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. Really wonderful insight there. I think when I go back to the gym eventually one day, I think I'm going to hit the weights again, inshallah.
Yeah, well, definitely do that.
Definitely. Look, Adam, thank you so much for joining us, inshallah. Hope to have you back on the show again very soon. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Well, it's time now for a short break. But